Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight is our last night in these studios. We'll be moving to brand new studios as we kick this thing off once again in September. And to close the studio down for us, talking Saints, LSU, Tulane, and Pelicans, none other than Mike Detillier of WWL Radio. Of course, tonight Tulane takes on Florida Atlantic. Saints will be going into their final preseason game against the Miami Dolphins. And Mike, we appreciate your time as we close down this building and move into another one.
When I leave.
yeah, it's kind of a swamp sale. On the way out, take what you need.
Man, if I'd have known that, I'd have brought my truck over here instead of the Jeep. I could have put a little bit more stuff in it.
I know our director, William Hill, would say, please take everything you can, unless he's got to move.
Oh, man, listen, if that was the case, I could bring a couple guys over here. They could have got this place shimmy down real fast.
No doubt it. But thanks again.
Thank you.
Our final show here in this studio, and looking forward to our brand new studios. And welcome back. And it is your time of year, isn't it? I mean, you are nonstop now until February.
Yeah, and then even after
it's the
that,
draft.
It's, it just sort of doesn't stop until probably like May 15th for me. Because what happens is, the NFL season ends, but then you got combine, all these individual workouts, me finishing up draft report, NFL free agency, the draft itself. And then, all these magazines want that 90-day run.
Yes.
They want to hit the stands about May 20th, somewhere in that range, and roll that thing all the way through, so to speak, until August. And so, they asked me to do article if it's on this, that, Saints, LSU, whatever. And so, yeah, it becomes sort of nonstop. But then, once middle of the May hits, I'm like a school teacher. I get a little bit of time, off, and then all the camps on the bayou start. And so,
and that really has turned into a great thing, hasn't it? I mean, they got some really good. That's kind of been the epicenter from the Manning camp to the lineman camp that you guys have. Talk about all those camps you're involved in.
It is. I would have never thought of it. Okay, the line camp has been there over 35 years. 3 LSU coaches pieced that together, and now it's the largest offensive, defensive lineman camp in the country.
It's amazing.
We had 536 kids this year that attended. People from Washington, D.C., from Texas, California. Got to meet so many of the parents that were there, some of the kids also that were participating, and be able to attract. We had 4 coaches from the Kansas City Chiefs that were there.
Yes.
So Andy Reid's son was one of them, who's the linebackers coach there. And so Brandon Daly, who was with the Patriots for, I think, 7 years, didn't get the coordinator's job there, so he goes to Kansas City, teams back up with Spagnuolo, who he had known, and his wife's from the Kansas City area. We got Carl Dunbar, who's with the Pittsburgh Steelers today, Henry Thomas, a former LSU lineman. But it's amazing what that's been able to do. And then I think it can hold up to 1,200 for the Manning camp. They didn't get to 1,200 this year. I think it was in the 1130s. But still a huge camp there to see all those. It was 46 starting college quarterbacks that were counselors. You're amazed that
That's crazy.
that it's into that deal. And then we have the Pro Football Combine, which is a one-day affair, and it was the biggest we've ever had there. It was in the 340s,
Right.
that particular deal. Economic impact for the area is like $2.3 million.
That's crazy.
And it's all jumbled up in a 2-week time frame. You know, so
Right.
we start the lineman camp on a Friday. It ends on a Tuesday. We get Wednesday off. Manning starts Thursday. Roll that around till Sunday. Get a week off. Pro Football Combine camp starts the Friday. And so, yeah, it's been great for Thibodaux. It's been the kind of the epicenter
Right.
For camps.
Yes.
And I never thought of that. And certainly them being able to do a lot with the fields,
Right.
which, you know, we laugh about it all the time, that at one time, you know, growing up, that was nothing but cane field. Now, you know, they have the Wellness Center, $72 million. They're adding on to that all the fields that are around Nicholls
Right.
State to use as practice fields that we've been able to use. And it's been a huge economic boost to the area. And also to people for the first time coming to Louisiana, to South Louisiana. They want to go on the swamp tours, the restaurants, everywhere
Yes.
else there. And so it's a huge thing for them.
It is. And you talk about the upgrades to the facility at Nicholls State. Also, you're a spokesperson for Thibodaux Regional and what they brought to the table as well.
Yeah, because, you know, I saw it on the right stuff. They said, you know, what gets this bird to fly?
Yes.
Funding.
Yes.
That's what gets this bird to fly. And they've been able to do that. And certainly the new Wellness Center, which is, man, if you're in the Thibodaux area to see that,
Right.
is just unbelievable to have that there. We've had over 500,000 people in the last year and a half actually visit the Wellness Center. And now they're into phase 2, where they'll be building beach volleyball courts, where they'll have beach volleyball events there. They're going to have a track,
Right.
soccer field, and a football field.
Right.
Right behind Nicholls
Amazing.
football field, they'll have another field. And so, man, listen, Greg Stock, he's really pushed this not only for high school, but for middle school. He's big into the fitness part of things and healthy eating and healthy lifestyle. And, you know, down there, you know, there's a lot of divergence
Yes,
from
there is.
the healthy lifestyle.
Yes.
No, I'm witness to that.
Yeah.
So it's been a great deal for him there, and it's really been the benefit of the area to see that grow. And they have a new cancer center that they're going to also be building. And, you know, we live in that center of the country too.
Yes.
And where we at, the cancer rates are so high. And so hopefully, you know, we can do something about that, because that, you know, I don't think any of us who are breathing
Right.
have not been affected by someone
in that
who
family.
has had cancer. And so done a great strides with that. But man, Eric, it's just shocking to see.
From where you growing up
From where
there.
I grew up.
Right.
The first time Coach Hill passes there, and he was like, oh, come on, Mike, this can't be the place. You know, we grew up.
Right.
You know, we thought that was a big thing. You know, when he grew up even farther down on the bayou than I did, that was a big thing to go to Thibodaux. You know, go to Nicholls State and that sort of thing. The Saints trained there in the mid-'70s.
Yes, they did.
And man, they had mosquitoes big enough back then. Dude, they could have picked you up and, and carted you away.
Right.
But that was a short run, and then, you know, went elsewhere. But it's really unbelievable to see what's happened there, and what Tim has done to that program too. That's a great story.
Well, let's start there, okay? Because let's start there, because ranked 11th in the nation in FCS, and Nicholls expected to have a really good season, picking up where they left off last year. They'll open it with Kansas State. They beat Kansas last year to open up the season, and you know, one thing I love about this program is they're not afraid to take on anybody.
Yeah, and you know, I always tease Tim about this. When they cut you that check, everything sounds a little bit better.
That's right.
You know, that's a money game for him. But you know what he's done, and if you go back in the 29 Southland Conference games before Tim arrived, they were 1-28. Just think about that, 1-28. And what he's done, winning the Southland last year, getting into the playoffs, having a home game, you know, at John L. Guidry Stadium, going on the road on that red field, and you had them, you know, at halftime. You had them by the teriyaki, and then all of a sudden, you know, you get a blocked field goal, and it flipped the momentum of that game dramatically. And that team plays for the national championship. And so got a lot of veterans coming back. Now, listen, they couldn't have done it without Chase Forkey.
Right.
Listen, he's a straw that turns the
He
drink.
really started the migration there, didn't he?
I think he is the biggest factor player-wise, and I don't think there's any question. A lot of young men who played with him or against him were like, man, he's going to Nichols. I'm going to go there too.
Left Maryland in the dust. Said, look, Maryland at the altar, right?
Southern Miss.
Right.
Because a couple of those teams late got involved with him, but he had committed during the summer before his senior season, decided he would hang on at Nichols, and it changed the program dramatically.
Right.
And the other guy, too, is Sully Lesh on defense.
Yeah.
My cousin Tim was coaching at Lutch, and he was like, Mike, you got to find a Division I school that'll take him. And nobody wanted to touch him. He's too small. He's too small. And the same thing with Pittman at linebacker. He's not big enough. And to see that those three guys have been a focal point of what they've built. This year, with the talent, with Gums at running back and Bussey and Dontrell Taylor, you got a three-headed monster that rocks you every which way but loose. Deshaun Dixon was a tremendously talented receiver. I think he's the most talented pro athlete there since Ladarius Webb.
That's saying a lot.
And he's got some skills as a receiver.
Right.
And they got to rebuild the offensive line. I think they just have one starter back. They had a guy that's played a lot, but he's not really would consider a starter. They moved that guard to center.
Right.
Defensively, though, they're really good. And we'll see with the kicking game. They have a new kicker there. But, man, he's done it, and it's amazing. And now, I always tell him, man, I'd much rather have the problem you have. He was a unanimous pick to win the Southland. He's like, we feeling, the deal now. No, I would much rather everybody picking us to win than everybody picking us to lose.
Right.
Because that's a veteran team. If you had a young team, that's a different story.
Yes.
But you got leaders like Chase, like Sully, like Pittman, those guys, and Dontrell, that have been there, done that.
Right.
And I think they get it to the young guys.
And it's become a destination for local high school kids.
Yep.
Where again, maybe that was an afterthought at one time. Now, again, if they're not going to LSU, they're not going to an SEC school or a big-time school, first thing they're thinking is Nichols. I can go there. I can win. Again, that's a place I want to be.
And Tim will play you right away. And see, for every 17, 18-year-old, I'll go to a bigger school, but, man, I want to play.
Right.
And Tim has shown he'll play the freshman player. This was the final game when they played Southeastern. His brother, Rusty Rebo, who was a tremendous linebacker at Nichols, played with the Saints for a while. And we was on the sidelines, and he nudges me and he says, turn around. And they must have had like 25 high school kids there just watching.
Right.
Man, I've stood on that sidelines before. Zero. No high school kids there to watch Nichols play. And that Thursday night, I'll guarantee they had 24 kids that were there watching. And so that goes to show what they've done with the program and what Tim's been able to do. And they do have some renovations going on in the sports department and going to make it look really, really nice. And that end zone, everything else, totally redone. They have basically a brand new field. It's a couple, 3 years old. So. And he got it rolling there.
Yeah, it has been an incredible rise for Nichols, no doubt about it. We'll get back to the college game in the second half of the program. Let's talk some Saints. What are your expectations for this team this season?
Double digits. It's disappointment if you don't get to that. 13-3 is hard to do again. And you think about games, Cleveland. Got a field goal kicker. He couldn't kick the backside of a barn with a bazooka and hit the ball. And what happens if Baker Mayfield plays in that game instead of Tyrod Taylor? And you go to Baltimore, and a guy who has never missed an extra point in his life shanks one. And so, those two.
Got to be a little lucky.
Listen, when you win the Powerball, it's not because you're smart. It's because you're lucky with the numbers. People who win that Powerball lottery, they'll tell you, I played the same numbers for 4 or 5 years, and finally you end up winning. So, but they are a talented team, and you still have one of the signature players in the game with Drew Brees. Michael Thomas has emerged as one of the best football players offensively in the NFL. Kamara, you can put in that same category.
Yes.
The offensive line, if they stay healthy, can match anybody's. But now they got another guy at tight end that if he can stay healthy, at 32 years old, God has blessed him.
Yes, he has.
He can still run.
Yes.
And he's a guy, Eric, that I think would be a 75 to 85 catch tight end in this offense. Look at the disparity between Michael Thomas and the next receiver.
Yes.
And how huge it was, under 30 catches. Now, that ain't happening this year if Cook is healthy. And he gives you another option, and especially short yardage, red zone, where Drew loves to get the ball to the tight end. And so, man, Jared Cook's a huge addition to this offense. There's still some uncertainty at receiver of who will be the number 2 guy.
Right.
I still think it's Ted Ginn Jr. until otherwise. I haven't seen anything from Traquan Smith.
Right.
Keith Kirkwood has had some injuries. The young kids have flashed it.
Yes.
Emmanuel Butler, Simi Cobbs, Junior Cyril Grayson, all those guys have flashed it, but they haven't done it in a regular season game. Man, because my thing about preseason is the biggest mirage. Listen, Diliberto told me that years ago because he was gambling
Right.
on everything, and he was like, Mike, listen, I'm just telling you. But he stole it from Richie Pettibone. Richie was a player, assistant coach, head coach, and Richie's was, man, that's all I'm telling you is, what you see in them preseason games is not what you see when it kicks for real. Those veterans understand, okay, I'm going to really give it to you when it's for real, when I get paid, not this preseason stuff.
Sure.
So Ricky had a great line about it, that practice is for the unskilled.
True.
And that's what, and so you're trying to get back in football groove if you're a veteran, but really preseason is for the young guys, the first year players, rookies, free agents trying to make your roster. That's where it's big for preseason. That's why I don't think we'll ever go to 18 games in the season.
You don't think they will?
Nope, no, I don't think they'll ever go. I just think the wear and tear of 16 games is long. I think it's a red herring being thrown out by the owners that, eventually, it's still going to be 16 games. I don't see an 18-game season. I think that's really lengthy. And if you went to 18, you would have to really extend that roster for a long way.
Which is the carrot and the stick for the players, right?
Right. And so I'm not real sure. Here's my thing. Why do they have an inactive list?
I agree.
My thing is, listen, if I can keep 53 guys on why can't I play them?
Play them all.
Again, I guess it's a financial issue in that particular deal. But this is a really talented football team. And maybe not by what you've seen, but I do believe the difference this year from other years, their defense. Yeah. Other years, you go to practice, offense dominated, up and down the field, up and down, up and down, up and down. Ain't that case anymore. Not that case anymore. And so I think not having Rankins is going to hurt. Right. But
what are your thoughts on Malcolm Brown?
Listen, Malcolm's a huge pickup. He's a big run stuffer. Again, he's a guy that was never known to be a great pass rusher. Never. Right. What the Patriots wanted him to do, tie up 2 guys, let the linebackers flow in, unimpeded, get to the ball carrier. Right. And, man, he's a big horse. He's a smart player, technically sound. And just a week or so back, we had Pete Jenkins on. And Pete has worked during the summer with David Onyemata. Yes. And Pete told us on Sports Talk that he thinks David Onyemata is going to end up being a signature player in the NFL as a defensive tackle. And he said, if you think they made a mistake getting rid of Akeem Hicks, they better not do it with Onyemata. Right. And listen, Pete's not a guy to really stretch things to tell you. Yeah, because last year at this time he told me, he said, man, I'm working with a guy at Alabama because, he floats around all over now. He's a paid mercenary. So he's in Alabama for 1 week. Right. He's in Kentucky. He's in Georgia. He's with the Cowboys. He said, man, there's a guy here. I'm telling you, Mike, he's going to be an All-American. I said, who is he? He says, Quinnen Williams. I said, Quinnen Williams? I said, he didn't even hardly play last year. He said, well, I don't know about what he did last year, but he said, all I know is they can't block him. And I saw that first game against Alabama, and I was like, man, and you look at Quinnen Williams, and he made that call. Yep. He said, I can just tell. But he loved Onyemata's work ethic. He said, athletically, he's off the charts. And he said, now he's getting it. He understands. Did not play high school football. He played college ball in Canada, which you got to line up a yard off the line of scrimmage. Man, Eric, you and I can do that. If they give me a yard, I can get under your pads. Now, you might throw me back,
Right.
but I'm going to stop you a lot of times. It's not like if you can nose up and get that ability to get in there. So, and that's really encouraging. Demario Davis, I think he is going to go down because, you know, you look at Jonathan Vilma, the 1 year with Sharper,
Yeah.
whatever you want to think, and man, off the field, man, that was unreal. But, man, Demario Davis got a chance to be really good. And I give Greg Williams a lot of. Greg told me that a year ago. He said, man, did the Saints make a great pickup with Demario Davis? He can play.
Yeah.
He said he's smart, he's active. He said not only is he great against a run, but he's also terrific in the coverage part of the game. And I think, I wrote this after they paid Michael Thomas. You know, the wrestler Goldberg, he's always like, you know, next. Who's next? Who's next to get paid on this football team? Von Bell. He is a core player defensively on that. Man, I've had people want to debate, man, he's not that good. That Marcus Williams is a better player. You tell me, after what you've seen, that Marcus Williams is a better player than Von Bell? No, it's not even close at this stage. Interesting, Anyamata and Bell, money years for them. So, man, I like what I've seen of Von Bell. The young rookies, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Saquon, I know they can play in this league.
Yes.
And Caden Ellis also.
Yeah.
He's a young man that, you know, he's got some football genetics flowing through him, so to speak. Dad Luther, man, I'm getting all in his business because, man, I actually scouted Luther when he came out. So you can see where they got some depth and they got some talent. The secondary is the key here. How much better can they be? And I think Marshawn Lattimore is a guy, when all the lights go on, he's going to be a better player.
Yeah.
I think he's one of those type of guys. Man, I understand his preseason.
Right.
Okay, I get it. Big key is the development of Eli Apple at the other corner. You go get picked on. He knows it.
Yeah.
He knows it. And so how well he can develop there.
And he played pretty well last year, especially down the stretch.
I think down the stretch. And they've done a little bit of work with his techniques and him not being as grabby. As he was in the past, because once he got Pete, you know, you saw he was pulling at the jersey.
Sure.
So listen, your special teams, Morstead and Lutz, you really couldn't ask for much better. I think they got themselves a return man.
Yeah.
Man, Deontay Harris, man, whatever you want to think about Marcus Sherrills,
Right.
man, the heat's on with him. The heat's on.
It's only $90,000 to cut him dead money if they have to, and that tells you that if Harris can play, they're going to play him. And look, I think he's a terrific player and has an opportunity to be a really good returner. You know, the question's been on previous shows is he only does one thing, so how do you justify him on the field?
Well, Will Lutz just does one thing too, but he does it pretty good. Morstead does one thing, he does it really good. My thing about it is, if he can flip the field for you, and you know what he's been averaging, almost 30 yards or 30 yards a kickoff return,
Right.
Man, I'll take that in a heartbeat. What you want to see a little bit more than the small sample size is as a punt returner. That's where he can make the difference on this football team. But right now, you looking at it, you couldn't say, well, Marcus Sherrills has floored him.
No.
It's the other way around. Now, can he continue to do it? And that's going to be the key for him. But, you know, you just look at his background and what he did at a small school at Assumption. And it's almost reminiscent of what Coach O told me about Cole Tracy. I said, man, we played high school games with more people watching than this kid played in college.
Right.
How he handles the pressure, it has not affected him one bit. He's been terrific there. So a rough early part of the schedule. Come out of there 2-2. I mean, you'd like to be 3-1, but if you come out of there 2-2, you got to roll.
Yeah. I want to ask you about Marcus Davenport. We saw, as you mentioned, Anyamata in year 3 now, kind of coming into his own. You've got a situation with a lot is expected of Marcus Davenport. Hasn't really shown a lot in the preseason or the offseason workouts. What are your thoughts there? Is that a guy that can turn this thing on if he's fully healthy in the regular season?
I think what he needs is a signature game and to flush everything out. Because he's not. Is he playing with confidence? I don't see it. What separates those great pass rushers? Man, when they got that hand in the dirt and they put that fear of God in you, so to speak, if you're a tackle trying to block him. He doesn't do that. He's got to have that game that he can showcase it and make it big, and then I think everything will be fine with him. The one thing I see with him, and the fact that if you know a little bit about his background, As Texas San Antonio, they moved him all around.
Yes.
And Frank's deal was, Mike, if I put him at right defensive end, you know what? They're going to stack the line on that side. If I put him at left defensive end, they're going to stack the line. So he would move him back and forth and stand him up. Now he's in one spot. What he's got to do is, not so much as a pass rusher, because he's got a few results as a pass rusher,
Right.
is that he doesn't sense that block coming at him. If I'm the Texans and I see him on the field, I'm running the ball right at him. It's almost kind of prove it to me that you can stop
Yes.
in that spot. And sometimes he doesn't sense, that block getting into him, and he's so tall cut that he's going to catch those blocks. And so it's, to me, not so much as a pass rusher. It's, I think sometimes his unawareness of where the block is coming against the run. That was something Ryan Nielsen told me this summer when we did the line camp. It was the biggest change that last year, they just gave up 3.6 yards a rush.
Right.
The year before it was 4.4. Man, that's a big difference in this league.
Yes.
And you always got these guys with stats. Oh, well, they just throw the ball more. You know what they threw it more? 19 times in a 16-game season. So, that don't hold no water
Right.
on that. That's basically one more pass a game. That's where it starts for me. I think, and it's old school football, but it's true. If I put you in a 3rd and 6 or a 3rd and 5, that's different than if you got a 3rd and 1.
Yes.
Totally different. And so that's going to be the key early on in the season, because I do believe, Eric, the way they practice today or not practice, a lot of these first couple of weeks are going to be over games where teams are going to score a lot of points. Then after like 3 weeks, the defense, man, I get it now.
Right.
Because I don't see, as a defensive coach, I've talked to a lot of young ones and old ones, how do you teach tackling and getting in an angle if you don't do it? Okay? It's not like a switch you can flip it on and off. These guys today who can run the way they can and their shiftiness and speed, how do you practice for that? You can't until you get into a real game.
Right.
And we saw it last year in the first game. Man, it was pinball football. Saints score, Bucks score, Saints score, Bucks score. And we saw that in a number of games. But come October, the defenses had kicked in. It was a totally different story. And then come December, those 50-something, 40-something games, you didn't see it anymore.
Before we go to break, I want to ask you about Trey Hendrickson. Has had a nice camp. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's very improved. And I thought he was too light last year playing in this business. He got hurt, but he's bulkier this year. He's strong in the upper body. My big concern for guys, and you know what he can do well, he's a pass rusher,
Yes.
is lower body power, lower body strength, because that's where you build your power and your speed, lower body. And he's bulkier this year, he's stronger this year, and you can tell he's a difference maker. Now, you hope that he can be the guy to spell, because Cam has been on the field, 91% of the time. So you got to give him a little bit of a break there. And does Mario Edwards Jr. get involved here? Because he can play both end and tackle. And early on, you won't have Rankins.
Right.
And game 1, you won't have Anyamata.
Yes.
And, one of the guys who's really surprised me, and he's played well, he's bounced around this league like a pinball, has been Sylvester Williams.
I agree with you.
When they signed Seal, one of his former defensive line coaches said, eventually he's going to go to the right team. It just never has hit for him. And you can see he's making some plays inside. But what you really going to miss with Sheldon, that ability to rush the quarterback from the inside. That's where Anyamata's got to make that move.
And hopefully he will be able to do that as well. Mike Detillier is with us from WWL Radio. I'm your host, Eric Asher. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. A quick word from our underwriters, and we'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Mike detillier of WWL Radio is our guest. Mike, Latavius Murray comes over. Mark Ingram heads over to Baltimore. Talk about the difference in skill set, what you'll see out of Murray as opposed to what you saw out of Ingram on the field. Look, I don't know if they're going to be able to replace what he did in the locker room in terms of his leadership, his ability to fire up the team on the sidelines, but just from a skill set standpoint, what are you looking at?
You know, Mark was a shortcut type runner, ran well between the tackles, was a really good receiver coming out of the backfield. Where you miss him the most? Pass protection. Drew Brees will never tell you, but you put him on that lie detector machine, he blew that sucker right out of the wall.
I agree with you.
That's where Mark did a great job. Latavius is a tall, he rides high in the saddle. You know, you watching old Western movies where you see that cowboy, man, he's sitting high in the saddle. That's how Murray runs the football. He's got a speed element that he can kick into out into the open field. He's a good receiver. And, you know, he's a pretty good pass protector because I've watched that. And he does a pretty good job at it. But, you know, Mark was an elite doing that.
He was.
Man, he was really good. And, again, what you brought up about the leadership part of it. And, you know, for a guy just to come in and say, hey, listen, I'm taking over Ingram's, that's not going to happen. He's a good number 2 back. I think he'll fill in there very, very well as a number 2 back because he can catch the football. So you don't have to change your game plan because he can catch the ball well coming out of the backfield. Early on in training camp, that's one of the things I watch with him, how well he can catch the ball with the hands. He's not up against the body. So I think he'll do fine in that area. But he's a different player, totally different. But he's got a speed element that Mark didn't have. Mark was, I think, a more powerful runner between the tackles, while Latavius is a guy, once you get him past that first row, he can kind of click it in gear and he's off to the races. And but man, he's a big man for a running back.
Yes,
you know, he's not a small guy at all.
Taysom Hill, a lot of conversation about Taysom Hill during this preseason, during the training camp. One thing I could say, he's matured as a quarterback. You can see, again, the mechanics, the accuracy a little bit better. But, again, I still believe that he's a long way off from being an NFL backup. I think his role could expand a little bit this year. Maybe, again, Peyton would not have a problem with him throwing the ball a little bit more when he comes into that Swiss Army knife. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think you'll see him, Eric, be used more in the slot as a receiver. Not that I'm tipping off anything, because you've seen him play there, but I think that they want to get him more involved because of his run after catch skills.
Yes.
He's a power runner, but he's got some speed, man. He can run. I did a couple of events with him this offseason. And one of the things he told me, because my neighbor, Joe Clark, he's a bolter. He says it's hard to break those guys of doing that. And what I mean by that is, Joe, he coached quarterbacks for 50 years, major college football in the NFL. And he's like, a lot of times guys who are that talented as a runner, they know the first read real well. They look at that second guy, and if he's not quite open, I'm taking off with it. It's hard to break that because you're so gifted as a runner. I think that's always going to be something Taysom's going to have, that element. But he's improved his footwork, which I thought was a little shaky. And he's done well with his setup and his ability to throw the ball. I mean, he wants to play quarterback in the NFL, but you look at his age, because of the fact of the Mormon mission that he was in and everything else. He's not a 25-year-old quarterback.
He's 28, going to be 29.
29. And so now, how long has it developed? And it was in Ruston, and Terry Bradshaw made this comment to me. He's like, man, I love Taysom. And what the Saints are doing with him is terrific. But he said, have you ever seen an old man running quarterback in the NFL?
No.
You know why? They ain't lasting. He said, no, I was a runner. He said, I ran the football.
He did early in his career.
But he said, once I got hit a few times, I figured out, I'm staying where it's at least fairly safe in the pocket. And he said, I think with Taysom, sometimes, his not wanting to slide and take that hit is scary. Especially if you're in a position where you got to take every snap.
And with his injury history at BYU, which has been
every
amazing
year
that he has not been injured here in the pros.
But man, he can do so many things for you. Special teams play, his ability to run the football. I think they're going to use him more in the slot. The last year it's been RRO. It's not been RPO. It's RRO, run option.
Right.
I agree with you. I think where you may see a little bit of difference is they may let him throw the ball a little bit more. But we've seen the erraticism with him even in practice.
Right.
And unbelievable game against the Chargers, but that doesn't mean he can do it in a regular season game.
Right.
Again, I go back to it. Preseason is a mirage.
Right.
Don't believe everything your eyes tell you.
Yes.
You're looking for individual talent, and you might be throwing the ball up against a guy that's going to be playing in the XFL.
Right. No doubt. Or selling insurance.
You just really don't know. I'm a firm believer that I told you this a year ago, and I stand by it. I think Drew Brees' successor, he's in college football today.
Yeah.
He's not on the roster. It's not, I think Sean wants to have Teddy be the guy.
Right.
But have we seen that Teddy can be that consistent, accurate passer? The answer is no. And so my thing is, I think the next guy, while I do believe Teddy will be given a shot at it, that guy's taking a snap in college football today.
Before we move on to LSU, your thoughts on this rookie class? Because on paper right now, based on what we saw, it looks like it's another good one.
Really good. Eric McCoy, which was no surprise to me.
No.
It was a knockout to Nick Easton. I mean, it wasn't even a battle. I mean, he knocked him out early. I'm impressed with Cameron Tom. He has made a lot of progress as a player. But, man, Eric's a really good player. And, you're going to have a botch snap. And he made the comment in an interview I did with him that 88% of his snaps at Texas A&M was out of the gun. And so now he's getting used to somebody putting their hands underneath his butt. But we did send a man to the moon. So, I mean, you're not splitting the atom here.
No.
And I think he'll pick that up. He's smart. He's physical. He's a really good run blocker. And I think he'll get better as a pro passer, protector in that stage. I think Gardner Johnson and Hampton are players. Man, you can see it. They got talent.
Yes.
Can play in this league in the nickel and dime schemes. Again, Caden Ellis is the surprise.
Yes, he is.
But if you watch him at Idaho, they moved him all over. They didn't give him a defined position. He almost was a defensive end sometimes. Sometimes he was in coverage. Sometimes they played him up front against the run, depending on who they played. And you can see his smarts, his ability to run the field east-west, and he can help you on special teams. But it's all the free agent guys. When you think about it, little Jordan Humphreys, Emmanuel Butler, Deontay Harris,
Ozigbo.
I think he's a developmental guy. But I do believe they've hit on that particular part, and it's great that you've been able to do it. Listen, you can fling it to me last year. Well, all those guys, they're playing on another team, so our draft was a success. Man, if they ain't helping me, what does that tell me? That don't tell you anything.
Yes.
I want a guy to help me. I'm not worried about if he's helping the Colts or the Giants or the Texans. I want him to help me. He didn't make this team. You don't hear that now with this group. You don't hear it. The big question mark is Alizé Mack, who's missed a lot of time with injuries. Very athletic, can catch the football. We've seen him in practice. Sean kind of get on him a little bit by running routes a little bit better. But he is very talented, very, very talented. And A.J. Derby, who they picked up, who's bounced around this league, he catch the ball pretty well.
Yep, no doubt. Let's shift gears to LSU, 6th in the nation in the AP poll. What I expected of this LSU team. I mentioned it last week on the program. Not just for this year, the expectations of maybe being a Final Four team, maybe winning the SEC West, winning the SEC championship, maybe going to a national championship game and winning there. But a lot on the line for this 2020 class as well. 15 of the 23 players are from out of state. And these are verbal commitments. And you know how they can waver if things go south. So really a lot on the line for Coach Orgeron, not just for this season, But for the next season, which again, this 2020 class looks like a pillar of maybe a national championship class if they can get all these guys in. Your thoughts on this season, just overall, and then we'll kind of get into specifics. Pardon me.
I'll go to the recruiting part. I talked to Ed. We filmed, I think it was February, and I did a show with you. I just got off the phone with him late, say mid-afternoon. I drove here.
Yes.
I told you, it's the first time I've ever heard him say, hey, listen, our recruiting's changing. We're going to be a national recruit team. Mm-hmm. And I understood the California part. He's got a lot of ties there. He's got some coaches that have coached there. When he started talking to me about Virginia and Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and I was like, Junior, it never happened here, at LSU. And he was like, Mike, we never thought we'd live this long either. So, and listen, that sort of situation presented itself to us. And he explained it to me. He says, not so much at first them reaching out, players reaching out to LSU. And he's like, Mike, when that happened, that was it. I told our guys, you know what, throw down what we got, we're going after them. And they've done a really, really good job of that. And if you think the class of 2020 is something, 2021 may have even more numbers.
And that's a big Louisiana class too as well, right? 2021.
Right. And they may have more from that area. And he had told me, listen, from year to year in Louisiana, it just depends.
Yes.
And he said it's areas. Like this year, got a lot of good defensive linemen. And he said, we can't take all of them, but we're going to try to get as many of them as we can. And there's one more he wants to get.
Yes.
Yeah, he's in Alexandria. But, man, he's just done a great job there.
He really has.
Selling that program and selling himself as a head coach. And, North Louisiana at one time, which was heavy LSU country, then Nick gets in there and he sort of blows everybody out. Not anymore.
Right.
Ed's, he's secured a lot of those top players from North Louisiana.
He truly has built a wall around Louisiana for the most part, right?
For the most part. And you're always going to lose people.
You can't, like you just said, you can't get everyone.
You can't get everybody. And two is, for different reasons, sometimes young men want to leave. I want to leave home. I'm going to go.
They've never been anywhere before. Right.
I never forget Tyson Jackson telling me this. He had committed to LSU. And all of a sudden, there's rumors that he's going to Miami for a visit. And Coach Laurie DuPont told me the story. He said, man, Nick calls me, what's going on, Laurie? He's like, nah, Coach, he's not going. He told me he's not going. He said, Laurie says, the next morning, he said, man, I'm looking on the internet and all that. All of a sudden, they got him on the front page of the Miami Herald. He's coming off the plane. And so he said, man, Nick was all upset about it. And Tyson got back. He said, what's going on? He said, Coach, you know why I went? I ain't never been on a plane before. Different reasons why you want to visit. Now the young men, I mean, they take all these visits as sophomores. That's a young man where I live at, Mason Smith from Terrebonne High School. And, I'm in my 50s, and he is the most talented big man I have ever seen from the Bayou area.
That's strong.
He's got 2 more years left. He's 6'4 plus in the 290 range, and he has been all over the world. In recruiting from Alabama to Notre Dame to Miami, you name it, he's been there. And so now you're seeing, I think years ago you didn't find a lot of those big men. Where Louisiana's underrated defensive linemen. They don't have a lot of offensive linemen, but defensive linemen, they got them. So Ed's got to go out in the Midwest, in the Northeast for linemen, or in the Florida area for linemen. So it makes a lot of sense. And the other area, and we talked about it so many times, is that quarterback. And he told me to comment about, he said, go back and look when Pete Carroll took over. How many quarterbacks from USC made it in the pros? And I went back in a 7-year time frame before Pete got there, they had 1 quarterback picked in 7 years. And he said, Mike, look what happened. We got Carson Palmer, we got Matt Leinart, we got Booty, got Sanchez, and Matt Castle never saw the field. He played in the NFL.
Yes.
So he said, that's the thing. We got to get that going too. And I think he's got that rolling now. Because I think Miles Brennan is tremendously talented. Doesn't play with that air of confidence that Joe Burrow has. That team believes in Joe. And I think he's the difference this year. I really believe he's the difference. And again, I'll go back to Pete Jenkins. And he's told me, he said, you don't have to do it for the first game against Georgia Southern. He because you never know. You might have a suspension, might have an injury. Write down the 11 starters for LSU on defense. Get a pencil and paper. That's how he was. Get a pencil and paper. Write it down. All 11 will play in the NFL and get drafted.
Amazing.
He said, how many schools can say it? He said, maybe Nick can at Alabama. Maybe Clemson can. Ain't nobody else.
Right.
So he said, that's how loaded they are on the defensive side of the football. But I think the big difference is Caleb Vaughn. If they get him for the role, he is something special as a pass rusher. That ability to get around the edge, and he just played one game last year, and he didn't even play the whole game.
Right.
What it was, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses, 4 tackles, 1 game.
Right.
And I hear people say, "Oh, all he wants to do is rush the quarterback." No, that's all he can do.
Well,
I would take that in a heartbeat.
Yes.
It goes to show the mentality sometimes. They don't understand. They're running away from Caleb Vaughn. They're not running at him. They're running away from him a lot of times. I think he's the difference maker. Grant Delpit is a signature player in college football. I mean, he tilts the field as a football player, and what they've done with their linebacking core, because now it's becoming sort of linebacker NFL.
Yeah.
With the stream of them that they've had through there. Now, Mike Divinity just has taken to the inside linebacker position so well. Jacob Phillips is a heck of a player. I think the biggest surprise defensively for Ed, and he told me this, is Damone Clark. And he said, Mike, he's not Eric Hill, but, you start to watch him. He's a big physical guy who can run. If you test him out, strength, speed, all this, he said, you know what, he's at the top of the list.
Right.
So he's pushing real hard for playing time. And then you have a lot of experience up front.
Yeah.
With Fahoku, with Rashard Lawrence. I think Glenn Logan's a really good player. I saw Glenn play so much when he was at Destrehan.
Right.
And I think he's in for a breakout year at LSU. And then you got Caleb Vaughn.
Right.
And the secondary's got a lot of young guys backing up.
Right.
Fulton and Stingley.
Right.
I think eventually, Ogeron was on the show with Bobby and I a few weeks back, and he made the comment, eventually I'm going to play a little bit on offense with him. Not this year, but eventually I will. I listen to Ed. He's telling you.
Right.
Eventually. But his return skills, because we have a little code with one another about something, and we doing the coach's caravan tour, and he turns to me, he said, man, Stingley's unbelievable as a return man. So I just looked at him, he looked back at me, he said, he's elite. And I knew what he meant,
right.
Because when he says he's elite, that's something special. And they haven't had that since Tyrann Mathieu, that ability to flip the field.
Yes.
And you know what? It'll be interesting. He's never been thrown at in his life. Teams are going to say, I'm not going to throw the ball at Christian Fulton.
Right. They're going to test him
I'm going
first.
to test Stingley and see how. I'll tell you what. He's got titanium in the backbone. He's going to get beat sometimes, but he's going to make some plays too. And their secondary is just so good. Jacoby Stevens and Harrison, it's just unreal. And Marcel Brooks, I think he could be the next Grant Delpit.
Wow.
Now, he's making the transition. He played linebacker
Yes,
in
he
high
did.
school. He's playing safety today, and he's doing a lot of the same things that Delpit did, but he's built along the same lines. And when you look at him, he's 6'3.5". He's 205, that sort of thing. So I think he's got that. Again, the quarterback issue is solved with Burrow.
Yeah.
I was concerned about the tackles. Now my main concern is inside because of all the injuries.
Yeah.
If Damian Lewis is healthy and Chason Hines is healthy, I'm good. Lloyd Cushenberry, he has turned out to be, Gilbo and I were talking about this. He was like a 2-star recruit. He's their best offensive lineman. You think about that.
Yeah.
He was a late addition. He was headed to South Carolina at one time. And how well he's done. And I think Sadiq has made a lot of changes, and he's progressed well. I want to watch Austin. Joe Brady's offense is quick, fast, so you won't have to hold him as long.
Expand on that a bit, if you will, because everybody thinks it's going to be the Saints offense.
It's not going to be the Saints offense. One of the things you see in practice is the pace of it. And the tempo and the pace of it. In pro football, they don't let you do a lot of that. They try to slow it down. You see them in practice, man. They running these, because in practice now it's like 27 to 29 plays. That's what they run each day. It's at a fast pace. Call a play, get up to the line of scrimmage, run the play, get back up on the line of scrimmage. And Ed told me this. He said, Mike, look at what has beaten us. And he said, you can kind of throw Alabama out because we getting beaten in the trenches. That's how we lost to Alabama. But he said, look back, Florida, when Mullen was at Mississippi State, Troy, Syracuse, how they got us. Fast pace, get up to the line of scrimmage. We couldn't substitute.
Yes.
So he said, you know what? We flipped the pancake on somebody. We'll do exactly to them what they were doing to us. We keeping that defense on the field. And Chip Kelly made this comment a few years back. If I keep you on the field offensively for 75 plays, I've got 4 touchdowns. If I keep you on the field for over 82 plays, I got 5 scores. If I keep you on the field for over 90 plays, I got 6. Because he says, you know what? What's the big difference in college football today? You got a good front 11. How many good backups you got?
Right.
You can't be rolling those guys in. And if I'm constantly getting up to the line, making a call, and that's the difference. The pace, the tempo, they are spreading the field out. And what it'll help, certainly helps the passing game. What it helps the running game. Because now you can't keep those guys in the box anymore. And I'm just interested, because I've seen him play so often, is John Emery. And Tyron Davis-Price is a heck of a player, too. And he reminds me a little bit of Lindell White, who was at USC, who Ed had there, and who he recruited there. And so, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire is, man, he's a really good little player. And he catches the ball so well coming out the backfield. I think Sullivan's a good fit. If Moss can stay healthy, he can help as that flex tight end along with Sullivan. They're going to put a lot of pressure points at you. And Jamar Chase is going to be the next star receiver at LSU.
What about Cade York?
We
keep hearing great things about him.
Listen, I've heard it too. And Greg McMahon, he told us this in the summer. He's the guy. And it's like, it wasn't even no competition. He's the guy. Here's my thing. He's physically got more gifts than Cole Tracy. He's bigger, stronger, got a stronger leg. Everything's on the line. And everything starts tightening up on you.
Yes.
In a crucial game, can you kick that game winner?
Right.
Now, don't tell me about the 59-yard field goal in the All-American game. Okay, what does that matter in that spot? When it mattered, he missed it late in the game, didn't he? He missed a field goal. So my thing about it is, when everything's on the line, if you play in Florida, if you play in Auburn, play in Alabama,
Texas,
can you kick that game winner with everything on the line and they calling timeout and calling timeout and you sweating it out?
Cole Tracy was able to do it, but
man, Cole was.
But he was a fifth-year senior.
Yeah, and one of the things Ed told me, he said, Cole was, hey coach, just get the ball to the 34-yard line. I got it.
Right.
I got it. Get the ball to the 34-yard line. I got it for you. I think that Cade York can kick it at the 34 because you bounce it back. That's a 50-yard field goal. But can he kick it straight?
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing last year that I don't think anybody in the LSU administration will ever say it, but I ain't getting paid by them, so it doesn't matter. Joe Burrow needed a place to start, and he got beat out by Dwayne Haskins, and he decides to leave. LSU was the right spot for him. It gave him a place to start, and he played big. That move may have saved Ed Orgeron's job. Just think about if you had to start the season with what you had at quarterback, because I don't think Miles was ready.
No.
Narcisse was erratic throwing the football. I think Justin McMillan fits in very well at Tulane. I'm not sure would he'd have fit in here at LSU in that spot, because of all of them, he was the most impressive.
Yes.
I think if this all works out for Ed, it'll be in the index. Joe Burrow saved Ed Orgeron's job at LSU.
You're speaking of Tulane. Talk a little bit about Justin McMillan, new offense under Will Hall. Their goal to get back-to-back bowl games, win bowl games. We keep hearing that defense among the best within their conference, could be one of the best in the nation. That's high praise for a Tulane defense. What are your thoughts?
Well, on defense, you got so many people returning, and then, you got the one stud up front, Patrick Johnson.
Yeah.
You think about, I think it was 16 tackles for losses, 10.5 quarterback sacks. That's a lot of pressure coming at you. They had 41 sacks last year. That's a lot for a Tulane team. It's been a while since you've racked up that many sacks. They got 2 linebackers with a lot of experience. that's coming back, and Graham and Moody, Marvin Moody coming back. Big question mark has always been where they've been strong in the secondary. Because listen, when you lose Roderick Teamer and you lose Donnie Lewis, that is a lot to come back and get. But you can recruit those players in Louisiana.
Yes.
How quickly they can adapt is that. Up front, they're a bigger offensive line. You got an NFL player in Darius Bradwell. I think he's a guy that is going to be an NFL player. And then certainly with Corey Dauphine, he gives you that speed
They are
element.
4 deep at running back.
And they're really good. And then the receiver, and picking up Jalen
Yeah.
McCleskey, I think was a huge pickup for him. I think he's a good fit in what Will Hall wants to do offensively. And then also with Moody, you know, because Whit Darnell was, 48 catches last year. It was almost like 21 yards a catch,
Yes.
8 touchdowns. So you got that really rolling, but having Justin back, and I think this offense fits him so well. And now they got an air of confidence. But what's even more encouraging if you're a Tulane fan, look the verbal commitments they're getting and from Louisiana.
Right.
It used to be you were getting them from Georgia and Alabama or from the Northeast. Now they're getting them locally. And that's the biggest change I see.
They say it
And-
might be one of the best classes that they've had in Tulane in decades.
It could well be. And I think that's going to be part of the residue, Eric, of LSU moving off a little bit to more of a national recruiting team. It's going to open the state up. Now, what Willie Fritz has got to do is to hold everybody back, okay? Because now, Ole Miss, Mississippi.
Right.
I see more Mississippi State recruiters here than I've ever seen in my life. You got TCU, especially in the northern part of the state, recruiting hard. Houston has always had an angle here, especially in the Bayou River Parish area. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's held them off so far.
Yes.
And he's almost got a full class already committed. And so many of those young men from the New Orleans, River Parish area that he's been able to get. That's huge for Willie, because I wondered a little bit how well he could square up. One of the things, too, is that guy out in Lafayette and Billy Napier, man, he's walking that all over the place.
Yes.
He's trying to get those kids, too, to go to UL. And so that's a big thing for him to grab those guys. But I do think the residual of Ed becoming and LSU becoming more of a national team is
Right.
it's opening up the state.
For the local universities.
Local teams. But now you know what you got to do. You got to fight off the rest of the schools
Yes.
from trying to cherry pick guys. And we see it. The wide receiver from Destrehan, he
Yeah.
committed to Mississippi State, where Mississippi State years ago coming into Louisiana,
not even
they would
close.
get a guy here and there. They doing a lot of work here.
Yeah, no doubt. And of course, Tulane starts off at taking on Florida Atlantic tonight, and we wish the Greenies nothing but luck. Mike, thanks as always for joining us on the program. Certainly appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Eric.
Of course,
Appreciate
you'll
it.
be on WWL radio all throughout the season, and of
Yep.
course, really all over the nation because you're on ESPN and everywhere else.
So, man, God's blessed me. Keep me busy and keep me out of trouble.
There you go.
Thank
Thanks
you,
again
Eric.
for being with us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for tuning in. As I mentioned, this is our last show in these studios. The next time you see this program, we'll be in our brand new studios. Looking forward to that. Thanks so much again to everyone for watching the show tonight. Thanks to Mike detillier for his time as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. On Pelican Sports Television at statewide 9 o'clock every Friday night, and always at ericasher.com. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That is weekdays noon to 2. You can also listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. As mentioned, all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Also, I want to thank our WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Alex Chacon, Naila Jones, my director, William Hill, and special thanks to Mike detillier for joining us tonight. I'm Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you in our new digs in a week. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Inside New Orleans Sports.